Hello and welcome to Home-Start's 50th celebration, 50 years of the most wonderful, wonderful charity. You are all here because Home-Start means something personal to you. You might be a mum, you might be a dad who's received help from Home-Start. You might be one of our absolutely fantastic volunteers, either past or present, or maybe you're thinking about being a volunteer. You could be a funder whose generosity, whose involvement has helped Home-Start stay afloat and is helping Home-Start evolve. Maybe you're an incredible staff member. We shouldn't forget our staff members who have been there working tirelessly to help support our volunteers, who in turn, of course, help support our mums and dads. And let me also say, you might be a social worker or having worked within a government department who's also helped Home-Start. Whoever you are, the fact that you are here, as I said right from the top, means that Home-Start means something very special to you. Well, today we'll be meeting some really special guests, celebrating the millions of little Home-Start moments that really make a difference and discovering the legacy that Home-Start support leaves. So why am I here? Why am I doing this? Well, because Home-Start means something very, so much to me. I just realized it's almost 25 years since I first got involved. I came to the UK from Australia in 1998. And in 1999, she might be watching, I hope she is, a wonderful woman called Sian approached me about starting a Home-Start in Norwich, in Norfolk, because we didn't have one then. And I kind of knew what Home-Start was because back in Australia, I had become a mental health activist and subsequently ended up as a mental health advisor to the Australian government and a member of the World Psychiatric Association. So I worked not only in Australia, but all over the world. And one of the things we came up with was ding dong, light bulb moment. If you want to build resilience, if you want to stop people sliding into any mental health issues, not necessarily mental illness, but distress, anxiety, all the way through, then you had to get in early. You had to start with children. Well, that started as policy for me, and we were visited by a group of social workers from the UK who subsequently set up Sure Starts. It was all kind of intellectual for me until I became a single mum with a baby, ended up having a breakdown and ended up in a psychiatric hospital. I know what the fear is like when you love your children and yet you are so scared that you can't take care of them. And there are all sorts of things bound up with that. There is shame because mums are meant to be everything to everyone. There's fear. There's hope for your children. There's so much emotion around it. I was lucky, unlucky and lucky. My parents were in the UK, I was in Australia. There was a nurse called Sue who had 5 kids of her own, who was a friend of mine, who used to pop over just to make sure that I could eat. I got bits and pieces of help from here and there. Somehow, God knows, you don't bounce back. I crawl back from the ledge with my children. When I came to the UK and Sian came to me and talked to me about Home-Start, I was like, yes, that's what I so needed back then. And so I got involved. Home-Start Norwich was set up. It's now merged and become Home-Start Norfolk. And I'm very proud to say, almost 25 years later, I am still one of their patrons. And just to end up, the legacy of Home-Start, you're not just supporting that mum or dad in the moment. The difference you make to the generations, and we will see that later on today, is, I don't know what to say. My youngest kid is, wait for it, a mental health social worker with the NHS specialist and a psychotherapist, and works mainly with the elderly and works with children. Not a coincidence. My older daughter works in public relations, but is also a mental health volunteer. And her interest is in, guess what? Parents and children. That's without me saying a word. So Home-Start goes down through the generations. That's why this celebration of 50 years is so exciting, is so wonderful to look back at some of the amazing work that Home-Start has done. Okay, so now let's go back 50 years to 1973, when a woman with a vision and tenacity had ideas for how to help struggling parents in Leicester. Margaret Harrison, Home-Start's founder, was a true trailblazer. And in case you're in doubt of that, let me just remind you of what was going on 50 years ago in the UK. Margaret stopped at nothing to make her vision a reality. And it was, she started a Home-Start, for the first in Leicester, the first in the UK, and then the rest of the world. Now, she founded Home-Start at a time when, and I'm guessing most of you won't remember this, a woman still needed permission, to a man's permission to borrow money from the bank. Jobs were advertised by gender, and there were only 26 female MPs out of 650. Well, Margaret Harrison knew the value of meeting the needs of both children and parents. So to tell us about her, I'd like to welcome her son, David Harrison. David, thank you so much for joining me. What sort of woman was your mum? Because thinking back, as I said there, 50 years ago, and it was at a time when community, as previous generations, was starting to crumble. So what sort of a woman was your mum to come up with a vision that, you know, birthed, if I can use that term, Home-Start?
Hi, Trisha. Thank you. Yes, I mean, in many ways, Margaret was an extraordinary woman, but I think in other ways, she was a very human person. And I think that's what's been brought into Home-Start. With my sisters, Jane and Claire, we were very much brought up with Home-Start. For us, it was very much a way of life. I was 9 when Leicester Home-Start was set up. And I think it was only really as I grew older that I realised how extraordinary Home-Start is in its simplicity. Margaret herself was a volunteer with 2 Home-Start families, and we as a family were very much involved in all levels, including camping out in the garden during summer holidays and going on the trips, the bus trips to Skeggy, which were an annual event for the Leicester Home-Start people. We had an extraordinary array of inspiring people passing through our home, and we also got to see the growing pains of Home-Start and the struggles that Margaret had within that. But I suspect that as many of us whose lives have been touched by Home-Start, I certainly feel that my life is the better for it. The experience reinforcing the power of seemingly simple human qualities of kindness, inclusivity and acceptance, of offering support, friendship, practical help and fun. And for me, this was typified by the way that Margaret used to meet everybody on just a very human level. I remember her coming back from having been down to London to see Margaret Thatcher, and I said, "What did you say to her?" And she said, "Oh, I asked her how Dennis was because I'd read in the paper that he'd had a cold." And I think possibly on the same journey, she was in a carriage, train carriage on the way back, and there was a mother with a screaming baby, and everyone else in the carriage was trying to look everywhere but in that direction. And Margaret just reached out to the mother and said, "Looks like you're having a tough day." And that bond was instantly created and so on. So, yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary, but also, as I said, it's simplicity as well. Margaret wrote that when she took the first tentative steps in setting up Leicester Home-Start back in 1973, she didn't actually realise that it was going to be the template and the pioneer scheme for all that Home-Start's become today. As my sister Jane puts it, Home-Start has grown organically, responding to what is needed and possible, with family and volunteers always at the heart. Yeah, Margaret was extraordinary in many ways, but she was always really clear that Home-Start was built by so many people. After the 40th anniversary, 2 years before we lost Margaret, she wrote, "Perhaps like the 50-year-old radio programme Desert Island Discs, the format of Home-Start will remain the same, while there's a constant change of people, places and creative ideas, keeping it as fresh and vibrant as ever." And that's what I see happening. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for all that you've done in the past, all that you're doing in the present, and all that you'll do in the future, in keeping the simple ethos and spirit of Home-Start alive. Margaret would be absolutely delighted, as are we, that despite all the changes and challenges in the world, the spirit of Home-Start continues and continues to weave its magic in, its simple magic in this world. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you so much, David. And Home-Start is spreading, and we'll find out about that a little bit later, not beyond the borders of the UK. Now, we're proud to be here. We're so proud to be here to be celebrating Margaret's legacy. It's time to meet some of the people who worked closely with her. Sue Belcher was a regional consultant for Home-Start. Ruth Smith was Margaret Harrison's secretary, and Liz McConnell set up the first Home-Start for forces families in Cyprus. Now, we've challenged them to share a 60-second snapshot of their Home-Start experiences. Take it away, ladies.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I have loved working with Margaret Harrison. She was wonderful, and she had a really mischievous sense of humour. And I remember around about 1996, 97, we had a regional meeting in Leicester, the end of the year, national meeting, and she presented us with a box with a very mischievous smile on her face. And she said, "Now look, this is something that you can only use for an emergency." And when we opened it, it was our very first mobile phone. Oh. One of these big ones, great big heavy things, and it took 8 hours to charge it every night, not to be forgotten. We had 2 hours runtime, phone only, no messages, and no emails, no texts or anything. And this put us into the modern age in Home-Start. And I'll never forget Margaret's smile on her face when we all opened them up. She was wonderful. And over to Ruth now.
Oh, can we hear you, Ruth? There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Ruth, and I was secretary to Margaret Harrison way back in 1987 for a few years. And whilst I was there, my mum also joined Home-Start Consultancy, as it was in those days, as a cleaner. Now, she'd been a stay-at-home mum for the best part of 30 years, raising us 5 children, had no confidence whatsoever to be in a workplace of any type. But Margaret, being Margaret, took her under her wing, nurtured her, encouraged her every day, and they became friends and visited each other's houses and met for lunch. And she stayed with Margaret for some time, and even went to the Princess Diana visit when she visited Home-Start Leicester as patron, I think she was at the time. My mum was absolutely over the moon, and I've always felt their friendship and their relationship just reflected the whole special, simple magic of Home-Start, really, just befriending and nurturing and becoming friends together for a long time. So that's my story. Okay, thank you. Liz?
Yes, so for me, I was an army wife in the late 1980s, and as an army wife was very aware of the stresses and strains that happened for army families or military families in general. Emotional problems, financial problems, lack of community resources. But nobody was really looking at finding solutions for that, because it was always assumed that it was something to do with the fact that the men were in the job that they were in. So it was because they were away on training, they were out on deployment or whatever, but it was always something to do with that. Margaret's vision was that Home-Start could actually play a really big part in changing what was happening within those communities. So she worked with army military personnel, SAFA, army wives to put together a pilot project. And one of those pilots was to be run in Cyprus. I happened to be there at the time, so I was lucky enough to be appointed as the first coordinator. I came over, worked with Margaret. She trained us. I went back to Cyprus, set it up, trained, recruited and trained the volunteers, matched them to the families and rolled it out in the face of quite a lot of hostility and suspicion. And Margaret had to deal with the bigger picture of that. I just had to deal with it on one little island. But it was a success. And I understand now that it's actually being rolled out and it's working well within the military community and accepted as a really important part of what they do. So for that, I want to say thank you, but I also want to say happy birthday and good luck to everybody who's going to take Home-Start forward in the next 50 years. It's still needed. It was needed then and it still is. So thank you.
And thank you all for such wonderful memories of Margaret Harrison. And I think that's given everybody watching just a tiny picture of how important Margaret's work was, how much she was a visionary. Thank you to all of you. Before I welcome my next guest, there's something that I would like you to see. Now, this took place a few days ago.
I don't remember having time to say goodbye to Marie, and that was really sad, just because she meant so much to me, and Marie's always stayed with me. I wanted to see her, I wanted to show her how far I'd come. You know, it's 20 years. I can't wait to see Marie, because got a surprise. I'm bringing Molly with me, and she hasn't seen her since she was a baby.
Marie sounds like, I don't know, a saviour. She really, really helped my mum. She was a friend when my mum felt lonely and thought there was no one. If Marie hadn't been there, I don't think I would have a mum.
She really made a difference. She was the light in my darkness. It's going to be emotional, but I think it's going to be great. I really want Marie to meet Molly again.
Well, hello, Sam and Marie. Sam and Maria are joining us. Now, Sam, hi, watching that. They both got tears in their eyes. I think a lot of us have. Sam, you were a mum supported by Home-Start some 20 years ago when you went through postpartum depression. And I can, you know, watching that, I could kind of, we could we're all blubbing here. And I understand, Marie, you as Sam's Home-Start volunteer, Sam was the first family that you supported. So let's find out why you never forgot each other. So Sam, for you, you know, I just touched upon those emotions that you have when you're struggling yourself, and the guilt and the shame, which we shouldn't have, but we do, and that feeling of not being able to get out of a dark space. Just tell us about what was going on for you and how much it meant when Marie appeared on the horizon.
Well, I had a horrific birth with Molly, and both of us nearly died, and technically Molly was dead when she came out.
Oh my.
And that stayed with me.
Yeah.
It was a lot of trauma, and basically because my husband at the time, Molly's dad, was working all the hours that God sent, I was basically alone for a long time, every day with her, and I spiraled out of control, really. It sneaks up on you. And Marie appeared from nowhere, which is a really odd thing to say, but I don't remember asking for help. I don't remember anyone saying this person's going to come and help you. She arrived, and the whole period, unfortunately, is a bit of a blur, but it was the darkest of times for me. And
what did let me just go to Marie. Marie, this is your first family, and I think a lot of Home-Start volunteers will understand where you're coming from. You might have done the training, but here it is in real life. What was that like when you first met Sam?
It was scary on two levels. One, because obviously it's my first family and just coming out of the training, and secondly, hearing Sam's story, being given a little bit of that story in advance. That was quite a scary situation I felt to go into, because I wasn't sure how I was going to support Sam, what she was really going to need from me at that point. So yeah, there was a lot of fear for me going into that. But yeah, Sam made it easy when I was there.
And you know what I think, and this is something that you see often, all the time, in fact, with Home-Start volunteers, when we just watch that little clip, both of you are wiping eyes. as parents, as you instantly connect with the pain that person must be feeling. There's always a little bit of something within us that connects, and I think that person picks up on it. So coming back to you, Sam, with Marie's help, what did you gain? What came to you out through that darkness when you say she just appeared? What did she give you that helped you get back on your feet?
She became the highlight of my week, really, and I looked forward to her visits, and you know, she'd help me in lots of little ways. You know, when we met up, like on the film, and we discussed them, Marie said to me, "I didn't do anything for you." And I said, you did so much. I knew I was loved and needed, and because I doubted myself so much as a mum, I felt that I wasn't, that I shouldn't be there, that I shouldn't have a child, that I didn't deserve this innocent baby. And Marie helped me rediscover myself, really. I mean, from just small things like, you know, she did my washing up. Or
that's not small. You know, I was going to say to Marie as well, one of the things as well, and I touched upon it earlier, is how things, you know, are pay on. Now, Molly, that baby, is this gorgeous young woman. So you can see that she's grown and flourished, but also both of you have grown and flourished and taken, I'm guessing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what you learned through your relationships in Home-Start, through the work that you did, you've taken that on and helped other people. Just before we wrap up, Marie, what do you do now? What happened to your career? And then I'm going to come to you, Sam. Marie.
Yeah, so after I left Home-Start, I went to do a degree in social work. You know, working with families is what I wanted. It was in my heart. So I did my degree in social work. I ended up working in a secondary school, actually, as working with vulnerable families, doing mainly all the social work stuff, but without the red tape, which was lovely. And I sort of took on the role of safeguarding and of mental health. So I was trained up as a mental health first aid instructor through Mental Health First Aid England to train up the staff who could then support the students. And I'm now progressing that on further to, I've completed my training to be an adult mental health first aid instructor now as well. So again, I'm sort of going out and ensuring that if any of us are in some sort of crisis, hopefully there'll be someone there who can help us.
Absolutely. You're training future Maries. And Sam, to finish with you, what did you do from that frightened, self-doubting mum to mama, that gorgeous Molly who we saw in the video, and work-wise, what do you do?
Well, I went back to work. It took a few years, but I went back to work in community arts, and arts and mental health were very prominent within that. And I actually, together with some other people, set up an arts group for women with postnatal depression. And we ran those sessions, and mental health and the stigma attached to it, and how we were trying to abolish it, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
it's something very close to my heart.
yeah.
And I will always support mental health charities, and Home-Start is an amazing charity, and you know, to give this back is something that I wanted to do.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories. It's Sam and Marie, and just gives us a glimpse of, I mean, we're all like lumps in throat, tears in eyes, but absolute joy at you know, really seeing so many years down the line the difference that Home-Start can make. Thank you both for that.
Thank you.
And Marie, you absolutely embody what it is to be a Home-Start volunteer. So thank you to you and all the other volunteers. I know that there are many Home-Start volunteers with us right now, and I really want to thank you for the incredible gift that you give, not just to the mums that you're helping now, but to future generations. Well, we're now going to do a live link up to Leicester, where the very first Home-Start began supporting families 50 years ago today. They're celebrating in person with an event for their volunteers, but they're going to be taking a quick break to say hello to all of us. Over to Home-Start Horizons. So you can see they're having a good time. I think the wine must be flowing. Thank you for joining us from Leicester, and we really I think they're going to enjoy the rest of the day, don't you? From the Midlands now, we are headed to the north of England, this time to meet parents at the start of their journeys. A big welcome to the Singing Mamas from Home-Start Warrington and Cheshire.
We're Singing Mamas Warrington. We are fully funded by Home-Start Warrington and Cheshire, and we are led by the fantastic Helen Elliott from Smiley Tunes. We meet every Thursday, we sing together, we eat cake, we chat, we share a really special space together as women to connect and have time for ourselves. We always end our sessions with a lovely song called Hold You in Our Circle. It's by a singer-songwriter called Emily Roblin, who's from Canada, although she's been in the UK for 20 years. And it's a really special song for us, which we want to share with you, called Hold You in Our Circle.
Hold you in our circle.
Home-Start a fantastic 50th year and another little song for you. Happy 50th to you. Are you ready? Happy 50th to you. Happy 50th to you. Happy 50th dear Home-Start. Happy 50th to you.
I hope hope you were all singing along there. And very big thank you to the mums and the babies from Home-Start Warrington and Cheshire, the singing mamas. Wasn't that fantastic? I'd like now to welcome 3 more people to share a 60-second snapshot of their Home-Start experiences. Sharina Shiv was supported by a Home-Start volunteer when she was a little girl, and her mum very sadly passed away. Natasha Winnard is joining us today from where she lives in Brazil. Originally from Margaret Harrison, she spent her childhood helping her mum, Elaine Dilly, as she set up the local Home-Start there. And I believe we've got Doug and Joe from Home-Start Glasgow South who are finding new ways to reach families. Take it away.
Hi, so my name's Sharina, and yes, happy birthday, Home-Start. God, definitely feeling a little bit emotional after today's conversations, and I don't think 60 seconds is enough time to sum up what Home-Start has been able to do for me and my family. As Trisha said, I sadly lost my mum when I was 4, and a Home-Start volunteer who we respectfully called Grandma Paula came into our home. She allowed us as children to, you know, just go out, play in the park. She took us to the circus. We did so many fun activities, and she noticed actually at a very young age I was falling behind at school. So she really helped with my English lessons. And sadly, as time passed on, Grandma Paula, we started visiting her then in her home and onto her nursing home. And sadly, many years ago, we lost Grandma Paula. But really that exchange of both, you know, her being in our lives early on and then us being in her lives later on. My brother, since, who was 6 months old, has gone on to become a trustee at Exeter. So big shout out to Raj, and also just all the amazing work you guys do. I would have loved to have been able to call Grandma Paula and tell her I had got into Cambridge University. So thank you, Home-Start, for everything you do. Over to you, Natasha.
Thank you. My dominant memory of my mum working for Home-Start was the summer of 1984, aged 14. My mum was supporting a young single mum who was suffering from depression. I spent lots of time playing with this mum's little girl whilst my mum listened to her mum talk. My mum had also been a single mum who'd also suffered from depression. This Home-Start mum came to my mum's funeral over 20 years ago. My mum's funeral was probably one of the toughest days of my life, but to see this mum at the funeral gave me incredible comfort. I learned so much from my mum about being a mum and volunteering about her Home-Start work. And this experience has directly influenced my career choice. After university, I studied to be a teacher, and I've worked in schools around the world. And in every new community around the world, I've volunteered to support children and their families. As Margaret Harrison said, it's important to focus on parents, their well-being and emotional needs. I know firsthand that this is crucial when we're raising and supporting children. Happy birthday, Home-Start. Thank you. Doug and Joe.
Hi everyone, I'm Doug. I'm Joe. We're dads coordinators at Home-Start Glasgow South, and about 7 months ago, Joe and we did something we've never done before. We took this leap into an adventure of starting a podcast. And we had been thinking, how do we support dads more? How do we support them better? Neither of us had done this. No. We had no experience, but we thought, hey, you know what? Let's give it a go. If it's absolutely rubbish, we'll get rid of it. But I think we've made a good run of it. And yeah.
Yeah, so we just finished season 1, which was 7 episodes. It was a lot of fun doing. And the reason behind the podcast was to try and reach dads who maybe weren't available all the time, couldn't meet like groups, or maybe weren't around when the volunteers were visiting. But also we run it coincide with an antenatal workshop that we do. So it was a lot to do with the antenatal workshop, and it's easy for dads to listen to, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, if you listen to podcasts, you know, you can do it while you're doing chores around the house, on your commute. whatever, just maybe chilling out over the weekend. So it's a really great format, and hopefully in the right size for dads, just to grab a little bit of what they need to be able to go forward with that.
It's bite-size chunks, easy to digest. It's 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I think the longest one's 50 minutes, but that was a one-off. But yeah, so they're easy to listen to.
And when you search for it, what's the name you're searching for?
Oh yeah, it's called Being Da Podcast.
So we've had a lot of fun along the way. We've learned a lot. I think we've really got used to each other and we're sort of bouncing off each other. So it's been great to be part of this. We hope it goes forward, and we're wishing Home-Start a happy birthday, 50th, and in another 50 years, hopefully 100.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And again, that shows a smidgen of the spread of Home-Start. As you heard there, we had Natasha in Brazil. I'm in Connecticut in the USA. I know we've got members of Home-Start groups all over the world listening in today. So, you know, Margaret Harrison's vision is spreading throughout the world. And it is so inspirational to hear the impact, and I definitely want the Daz on my show. I'm going to be handing over to Peter Gregg next, Home-Start's UK Chief Executive, who can tell you more about what we need to do to make sure Home-Start can be here for the next 50 years and keep making a difference for families and creating changes that last through generations. But before I hand over, let me just say thank you to Home-Start, because I've learned so much from Home-Start. Home-Start Norwich, which is now Home-Start Norfolk. We have so much to achieve, to keep achieving. Families in rural areas, for instance, when it's harder to get through to people, there is still stigma around a lot about not being the quote unquote perfect parent. They don't exist. So we're chipping away at that. And each time a wonderful Home-Start volunteer, backed up by our wonderful Home-Start workers, each time they engage with a family, it's like that first drop in a puddle. The ripples go out and out and out and create change for now and change for the future. It gives me great pleasure for me to say goodbye and to hand over to Peter Gregg, Home-Start's UK Chief Executive.
Trisha, thank you very much. That's really lovely of you to pass over, and thank you for your time and your professionalism today. You've done a grand job keeping us in check, and also ahead of schedule, which is remarkable. We never thought that could be possible, but bringing your personal experience to it all as well, and so many years of supporting Home-Start. So thank you so much for your time, Trisha. It's brilliant to have you with us today. And thank you to everyone who's contributed. Some brilliant stuff, very emotional. I hope that you've all got tissues and people around you to cope with the emotion of what you've heard today. It's been brilliant. It's wonderful to be joined. I think there were, count earlier today, there were over 600 people that were going to join. And so it's been lovely to see the comments in the chats and the different countries that people are representing, the different histories of Home-Start over 50 years, the supporters in there, funders in there, volunteers, and above all else, seeing families who we've supported and children who we've supported still with us on the journey. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to the team who've organised today. It's been a lot of work. So to everyone who's played a part at Home-Start UK and on everywhere now, the platform that we're using, thank you for your support. I'd like to particularly say thank you to Tanya, who I don't think slept for about 3 or 4 weeks just dreaming of this event. So you're allowed to have a lie down this afternoon when it's all done. Some people have asked, are we recording it? We are recording it, but we'll only use it if we've got the consent of participants, and then hopefully we can share it on and build on those brilliant stories we've heard today. So thank you to everybody who's contributed. So I just wanted to say a few words to, I guess, put us in some context of where we're at now and make the connection between that, where we've been over 50 years and where I hope we're going in the future. I'd just say as Chief Executive of Home-Start UK, it's an absolute privilege to be in this position. And I am one person in a position nearly stewarding the fantastic work that's happened for 50 years, starting, of course, with Margaret, and we'll say a bit more about that in a sec. But also everybody who's played their part as a founder of a Home-Start, who's taken it to a different country, to a new community, who's got a volunteer involved, who's been a volunteer, who's done fundraising, who's been a trustee, who's been a staff member. None of this could happen without you. So we are absolutely and genuinely a family, and we couldn't do it without any of you. So thank you. I'd love you all to give yourselves a pat on the back for being part of the 50th. I'd particularly like to highlight a few staff members in the room. Other chief executives gone past. Brian and Kay, I think, is in the room, and Rob and Vivian Waterfield, our deputy chief executive. People have been absolutely instrumental along the years, and some of the funders and supporters that I know are here online. Thank you. So I wanted to say just that although we're 50 years on, I think some things are very much the same as they've always been. Some of you will know Margaret Harrison's book, Hooray, Here Comes Tuesday, named that way because of the nickname a child had for a volunteer who came every Tuesday, and every time she arrived it was hooray, you know, here comes Tuesday, which is wonderful. In that book, I think Margaret really sets out the framework that Home-Start is all about. She talks about three H's of humanity, humility, and humour. The humanity piece is all around kindness and compassion. It's about the fact that at the heart of our work, and you've heard it so much today, you know this because you're Home-Start people, but at the very centre, the core of our work is humanity. It's relationship, it's being kind, it's being compassionate, and it's just being there with people. And I think, although that's a very, David summarised this brilliantly at the beginning, although that can feel really simple, it's really powerful as well. The ability to spend just a moment with someone is something that is really goes missing far too often. And it can sound a bit soft and fluffy, can't it? Kindness and compassion. But I think everyone in this room knows it's way more than that. It's powerful stuff. Alistair Stewart's in here, I think. He's a patron of Home-Start, a TV broadcaster, and he describes it as an elixir of Home-Start, the volunteer magic that is brings things to life, that transforms children's lives. So far from being fluffy, this is the stuff that changes lives. Those small moments can make all the difference. And those small moments in the home, at the earliest possible start of a child's life, that is why we're called Home-Start. It sort of makes its own name up, doesn't it? But an anagram of Home-Start, as Margaret will have told you all, is most heart. And I think that is the humanity running through the heart of our work. The second H that Margaret talked about was humility. Humility and being humble is really about standing together as equals. And I think through our work, and I'm so glad there are so many families and children on this call today, because we are equals in this journey. We are walking together. There is no judgment. We are working together on the issues in front of us. Volunteers tell me that they learn as much from the families they work with as the families say that they learn from the volunteers. This is a shared collective journey. And that's why I love the fact that we have Home-Starts across the UK on this call and across the world, because we're learning together, we're building together as equals, standing together. But I do think humility comes at a bit of a cost. One of the issues that Home-Start has is that everybody who knows us loves us and feels it with their heart and stays around with us forever, which is brilliant. But not enough people have heard about us. I think that Home-Start's work is taken for granted. In the climate that we're in, I see charities folding left, right and centre. I've heard of so many Home-Starts who are struggling at the moment. I've heard of so many other charities in our sector that are just finding things more difficult than ever before right now. And I know that this is not because there aren't families who need our support. Quite the opposite. More families and children than ever are facing issues in their lives and struggling in so many ways that our work is more necessary than ever before. Yet at the same time, I think we need to be able to shout louder, with more boldness about our work, about our impact and what matters to families. We know something about that over 50 years, and I think we need to really shout from the rooftops about that. Which is why it was wonderful this morning to see BT Tower lit up with a happy birthday message to Home-Start, our corporate partners. That's wonderful. And John Lewis have been so brilliant. We were on their Christmas adverts a few years ago. We've been on their Waitrose bags. And at the start of December, John Lewis are hosting a charity weekend. We're one of 3 main partners who will benefit from that. So if you're near a John Lewis or Waitrose store on the first weekend of December, please do get out there and say that you're with Home-Start, and hopefully you might get a free biscuit. Who knows? So I think humility is a good thing, but we need to wear it with a bit more loudness and proudness about our work. The third H that Margaret talks about is humour. I think we've got a sense of that today. We've heard of Margaret's quirky humour and really the ability to find joy and happiness in everything that she does. Now, she describes that in her book as wanting to get down on the mat and play with the baby and laugh with mum and dad and just find some joy even in dark moments. And we've heard a bit about that today. But I wanted to share a short anecdote about one experience I had of that very humour and how it's so magical, really, when you see it in practice. I think it was year before last, I was at Home-Start Corby and there was a royal visit. And royal visits are always great. They're good fun. They're a good day out. And this one was Edward and Sophie, who are now the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. And they did the rounds. They were doing great stuff. It's all great. And then Sophie received a phone call from her aide. And it turned out that there had been an injury at a school sports event and her child was unwell. And you can see, I don't know if I was meant to share that. I should probably get consent, but I don't know if I've got their direct dials, but I'll check. But when she came back in the room from taking this phone call, she was different. She was pale for a second. And obviously, as any parent would be, really concerned about her child. Thankfully, it wasn't anything too serious, as I understand. The minute she came back in and wasn't quite looking herself, she sat down, came into this children's centre in Corby and sat down at this place in the corner. And 2 volunteers were next to her. One of them jumped up and said, "I'll get you a cup of tea. That's what you need." That's proper Home-Start magic stuff. And so she went and get a cup of tea. The other volunteer sat down and said, "Are you okay? You know, what's going on?" She sort of shared the story quickly. And they got on the mat to play with the children that were there. And in a minute, the colour was back in the Duchess's cheeks. And they were playing with the baby. And there was laughter and smiles and everything. And it just, honestly, watching that moment and then hearing Sophie describe it afterwards as true Home-Start magic, it can happen to all of us. It can happen to every one of us, whether we're a duchess or not. This is the magic of Home-Start, the humour that cuts through, the joy, the happiness in the moment of just being there with families and children. And so as we look back on 50 years and look ahead into the next 50 years, I do find myself asking, what would Margaret think right now? How would she feel at this 50th anniversary? And not just Margaret, but other founders as well of Home-Starts locally in communities across the UK. We have 180 Home-Starts around the UK. We have a global movement which covers around the world, and we've got some of our colleagues worldwide on the call. What would people who've started this all think that we're 50 years in? Now, the first emotion is certainly pride and satisfaction that we've done so much, that we've helped so many families and children, that we've worked with so many people. 15 million hours of volunteer time is what we've estimated, and that's quite a conservative estimate as it stands. 1.5 million children we estimate to have been supported by Home-Start at any one time. Again, I think we're undercounting. That's amazing. Last year, we helped over 40,000 families in the UK, over 80,000 children, and this matters. I mean, this really is making a difference. So I think the sense of pride and satisfaction at a job well done and a job that continues would certainly be there. But there's a second feeling that I think would be coming through, an anger, a frustration that we're still here, that we're looking around and families are struggling more than ever, that families are finding themselves in the cost of living crisis and everything else that's been going on over the last few years in a worse situation than ever, that the demand for Home-Start support is higher than ever, that charities are finding it hard to exist when they're just doing good stuff. They always have to ask how they're innovating, how they're being new, when what we know is what we know. We want to do more of it. So I think there would be an anger and a frustration, which is why our strategic vision is trying to do more, trying to be there for more families, trying to grow, bringing more volunteers into our movement, bringing more supporters into our movement so that we can reach the families that we're not currently reaching. And we want to do more. We can't do it without your help. But I think that sense of anger and frustration would be there somewhere. But I also know The other feeling that would be there in the hearts of everyone who's had any involvement in Home-Start would be a sense of optimism and a sense of joy, a sense that actually there is a way to find brighter futures for children and young people. There is a way to support families. It's not complicated. It's actually fairly simple. It can have the most profound and powerful effect, but at its heart, it is pretty straightforward. It's volunteer-led, compassionate, non-judgmental, relational support. That's what we do. That's what you all know on this call. And that's what we need more of. And I know that that's only with optimism that anyone can start a charity like Home-Start, that anyone can keep it going, and that anyone gets behind a charity like Home-Start in the way that you all do. And so it's that sense of optimism and that sense of joy that I know is going to drive us into the future over the next few years. We know times are tough. We know that the landscape is difficult, but with your support and with people around you, we can do this. And I know that's the overriding spirit that Home-Start has always had. So that's what I wanted to say. If you aren't already signed up to Home-Start's magazine, Family Matters, please sign up. It's brilliant. If you've enjoyed today, then you'll love Family Matters. We send it 3 or 4 times a year, and it keeps you updated on all our work. Many of you will be on that list already. We're not making a direct shake the bucket ask today at all, because I know you're already supporting Home-Start in so many ways. But if I could ask every one of you who's been inspired by today to go and find someone else to bring in with you, to bring into as part of the movement, go and find someone else as a volunteer, as a supporter, as a family who needs support, and help us grow this movement into the future. And so that's all I wanted to say, but I thought it would be most apt if I finish with a word from Margaret Harrison. So I'm just going to read the last little bit from her book, Hooray, Here Comes Tuesday. And this is how she ends the book, by the way. So it's her last words in this book. A touch of human kindness and a sense of hope can lead irrevocably to greater personal well-being. It can rekindle that twinkle in the eye, the spring in the step, and the sound of laughter. A Home-Start volunteer backed up by the Home-Start community can lead to a cycle of people helping each other again, with ever-widening circles of friendship. Together, let's continue to share the magic and our humanity with families. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. Do stay part of the Home-Start movement and family. We couldn't do it without you. I hope you've loved today's event, and I look forward to working with you over the next 50 years and beyond. Thank you so much.